Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UX Lounge, brought to you by students from the University of Toronto's Faculty of Information and Department of Computer Science. On the student side, we have Ritika Sharma, Joyce Fung, Simran Singh, and myself, Roshni Thawani, here today.
In hopes of taking our learnings outside the classroom, we connect with industry professionals to learn about their day-to-day roles as well as reflections that may help our student community achieve their UX career goals.
We thank our guests for generously volunteering their time. Here at the UX Lounge, we look to learn about our guests' journey through UX and their experiences in the industry. Let's welcome Lexi Neigel, who is currently a senior UX research lead from Microsoft in developer relations for learning and education at Microsoft. She has over 30 publications and received numerous international and local scholarships throughout her journey in UX and prior to as well.
Lexi brings forward a wealth of knowledge. She has a PhD in human factors from the University of Florida, after which she went on to be a postdoctoral fellow for the US Army. She's been a human factor professor at the United States Air Force Academy and worked across Microsoft, browsing and search, all the way on to virtual reality division. Thank you so much for joining us today, Lexi. We'd love to have you at the lounge and learn from your experiences.
Yay, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Likewise. Could we start off with a super easy question? Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into research?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Lexi Neigel. Thanks for the intro. That was spectacular. You make me sound so great. I'm humbled, so thank you. So my start I started in research in undergrad. I have loved research for as long as I can remember. I knew that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know I wanted to apply it in industry. So I actually started out as an academic. I started in a human decision-making lab and then carried that all the way through graduate school. I knew it was really important to get an advanced degree like you all are to really succeed in the field, either academia or government or industry. So I went and I got my PhD, and it was totally happenstance just where I was working at the time. In grad school, I was in Orlando, Florida, so lots of opportunities between military, Disney World, and other contractors down there. And I happened to get a job at the Navy. I worked on F-18 fighter jets, which is like, didn't see myself there doing that, but I learned a ton. And so like that was my first introduction to how do we take all of this rich theory and research that we craft in academia and like how do we go apply all of that? How do we design around people and not the other way around, right? Like don't build the product that doesn't work for anybody. How do we do that? And so now that's kind of been my learning journey through my career. As you noted, worked at the Air Force Academy, right? That long kind of background in government work and public sector applied research, and just wanted to try industry. So I pivoted to a contracting role. I was just hired for 18 months at Microsoft, but just demonstrated that like, hey, I really know how to apply psychology to a better browsing experience, to mixed reality, to machine learning. And now I'm here and I'm loving it. So as many other UX researchers had that kind of winding journey into industry.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
What inspired you to work in UX research specifically?
Yeah. For me, I had tried everything, and it was a moment of, I want to try this one last thing. So for me, right, my journey started out in academia. I loved research, but I'm like, what happens to that article once it gets published? Do people pick it up? Do people do anything with all that hard work that I just did? I wanted to advance like the science a little bit faster. And to me, that means it shows up in a product and I can impact product right away. And I did a lot of work right in the military, and I loved that work. That was very rewarding because I saw the people it was affecting. and how in a lot of ways it did save people's lives, or make their lives easier or better. And so for me, I was at a point in my career where I'm like, okay, I have some like time to play around. So let's go try industry or corporate tech. I haven't done that yet. Let's see what it's like. And I love it because for me, it works a little faster than government. It's just right. The government is slow. There's lots of process. There's lots of law. And that's fine. That's all great. But it's a little slow. It's a little laid back, a little easy. And then academia is great. You get to teach people and work with students, and I love that. But I also get that in industry where it shows up with mentorship or mentoring folks who are just starting out in their careers who work like within my team. Or even I have a few designers who are interested in a career pivot. So industry really checks all of the boxes for me. And I really enjoy who I get to work with.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Oh, no, for sure. Thank you, Lexi, for sharing. I think, excuse me, it's really interesting how your whole journey in UX has like been involved in so many different sectors. And I find that like definitely really piques, I'm sure, like all of our interests here. And like, obviously, like as your learning journey like progresses, there's obviously like a lot of ebbs and flows. And we'd love to learn a bit more about like, what are some UX challenges that you face? And also what principles have you maybe applied to help overcome those challenges?
Yeah, this will be a bold response. And what I mean by that is I think one thing that's very interesting in corporate tech or industry is that research can be very political, in that you're telling people, hey, we need to change a massive engineering project, or we have to rethink this design entirely. That is emotional, right? That causes an emotional response for people. Some folks are on board. Other people are like, whoa, wait, walk me through why we have to change everything. And so to kind of answer that question, I think if you can do a little bit of self-study into politics, and by that I mean like actually I'm doing a lot of this myself and I'm seeing the parallels. So I've done a lot of reading in like, how do lobbyists move law in the United States government? Right? You have to work together. Maybe you don't agree. Maybe you have very different political opinions, but you still like want to go do the right thing for people. How do you make that happen? And I think there's that parallel, that crossover to UX. So I'd say the biggest challenge I've seen and faced in industry is really like, for some reason, user research or UX research gets oddly political, and navigating like, how do I get my research? Like, I need you to listen to the research, right? We're the voice of the user or the customer. And I need you to listen. We got to work together to go change this, or we have a broken product. We disappoint people. They leave. They don't buy our product, right? So it has business implications. And I think once you like make those ties and connections for people, you can overcome it. But I'm still on that learning journey too. And I'm happy to share resources. I do a lot of Medium reading. I follow a lot of folks on Medium who write about politics. And because I personally didn't want to pick up another book. You can't see the bookshelves back here, but they're like jam-packed with things I need to read. So I was like, we're going to go for a quick read, and I'm going to go and try things out like a researcher. I have a hypothesis. Maybe if I try this political move, then things will change. But that's where I would say spend a little time, because once you get more senior in your career, it's less like, oh, I did good research. And it's more like, how do I get people to care about this good research?
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you for that. I'm also someone who's interested in pursuing a career in UX research. So I think it was really interesting to see that also having to learn like how to kind of examine things through like a political lens, because that's not something that I've kind of really thought about when it comes to UX research until today when you shared that. So thank you for that. And I think everyone would definitely love to learn more about resources as well to grow on that as well at the end of the conversation. So we can definitely circle back to that. And I guess like adding on to that as well, obviously, as we all know, you have like a very like wide breadth and depth in your career when it comes to UX research. For someone who's like interested in pursuing a similar career, what are some like tips and tricks maybe that you could share with us as well?
Yeah. I love how you framed that, because right, I've been everywhere. I try lots of things out. I would say if you have the support, right, like family, friends, whatever, and you can do that, you can try lots of things, right? It's like, maybe I don't actually like industry, but I can go pivot and go do a much more academic kind of internship. If you have that support, and really it's like a learner's mindset, right? I'm going to try lots of things and see what's right for me. And you have the time, right? The other big thing is time. If you have that, I would try lots of little things out. And also the other thing I would say would be find mentors who will not only one sponsor you, right? Because you need someone who says your name to get you in the door. And of course, you're probably amazing. You will get in the door yourself, but it helps, right? Find mentors who will help you and sponsor you and say, you need to hire this person. Here's what they've done. So, right, they get to know you very well. But I'd also say on top of that, find mentors who will coach you, right? So not only are you having conversations on like, how do I go pursue this new thing, or whatever it is, right? Whatever you want to talk about in your mentor conversation, find people who will also coach you and point you in the right direction. Like, right, what I'm hearing is maybe corporate tech is not for you. Find people who can tell you that and are fantastic listeners and coach you toward like, maybe actually what you want to think about is working for a nonprofit, right? Work with people who help you meet your goals and can coach you to that, or get you in conversations and hired in the place you want to be. And take time to reflect. Reflect on like what you really want, because I did mention politics, so that's not for everyone, right? Like that can turn a lot of people off. So think about like really what's good for you, right? What's going to make you happy and preserve your mental health over time.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you for that. I think that was really helpful advice for sure. And I think like on the note of when you were also sharing about like for someone who's trying to navigate their career, there's a lot of like external things that folks should do, such as like seeking mentorship, a lot of like self-reflection. And I think for me that sometimes comes down to, reading articles or like reading books as well. Is there any like favorite like go-to book when it comes to UX research that you like to read?
Yes, everybody needs to read Erica Hall's Just Enough Research. I love that one. If you haven't read it already, I think she has the playbook on don't fall into these traps or these mistakes. Don't have these. Erica's very bold, and I love that, right? She's like, just don't go have those conversations if you see your stakeholders acting a specific way or doing something in particular, don't fall into the traps. And then she also walks through how to do research, and especially it's a great resource if you're just starting out, and like the title implies, figure out when it's just enough. Like, have we done enough experimentation or research to understand a core user problem or pain point or a user need? What is enough? And she is great at saying like, that's the bar, that's what you need to do. Go read it. It's great. I still reread it. I reread it maybe every year, maybe every other year.
For sure. No, thank you so much. I'll definitely add that to my reading list for sure. I have like an ongoing running list, so I'm excited to add that one.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's awesome. Yeah, I think I need to read that book because like during one of my internships, we had to like research how to like get trends off of Twitter, and like Twitter's hashtags are already so noisy. So it was like an unlimited problem to research and try and solve. So I think that's a really good one to check out. Kind of tying back to I think Joyce's first question, as you like kind of went through your career, like the challenges that came up, like that arose, maybe even like UX projects you worked on, how did you keep yourself like ambitious to keep going on or keep challenging yourself?
Yeah, I love that question. And I think for me, I prioritize my mental health and that also ties into like physical health too, where I've done a lot of like self-study of, okay, I'm having these feelings, having these emotions, and I want to normalize that, right? Like I'm depressed or I am not feeling like myself. We should normalize that. Those are normal feelings and emotions. And so I found a lot of that comes with challenges, right? Like if you just are like, oh, I'm losing this momentum behind a research project, or my stakeholders are really like pushing hard against something I'm suggesting, and I don't have like the skills quite yet to like, how do I navigate this? I prioritize my mental and physical health no matter what. It's like, you know what? I'm also in a place where I can do this. So I totally see that privilege of, you know what, I'm gonna take a day and we're gonna focus on on me. I'm gonna go for a walk, or maybe we go hike outside. But also, right, I think important in recognizing those emotions and how you react, right? Of I'm not gonna just go push back against them. I'm gonna go figure out like really what's going on here, set things down, problem solve it, right? Treat it like research a little bit. Like, why are these emotions running high? Why are people reacting like this? Was it something I did, or is it, you know, external factors or pressures that they face, right? Like, what are their goals, and how possibly is the research impacting business goals or their goals? So kind of a winding answer, but really take time for yourself and figure out what mental health, like a mental health refresh, and what that means for you, right? Some people can do therapy on their phone through an app, right? Or they need to see a therapist, or go for a walk, do yoga, drink tea, whatever it is for you, journaling, right? Figure out where you're like, oh, this is helping me think through and process real emotions. And also, right, I think the solution here is, you know, XYZ, whatever it is. That would be my response. I also will share, I play tennis every Thursday morning. I start my day late, and I'm just doing that for me because I need that. And it makes me a better performer because I'm not like, okay, work first thing. I get out whatever, whatever maybe is like, you know, whatever emotions are cropping up at work. Tennis is first, and then I will go to work and I feel so much better because I'm like, I'm kind of tired from that. And like tennis is a mental game too. So I'm learning a little bit of like, okay, how can I take that random thing and apply it to work? Hopefully that helps. Hopefully something within that resonates.
Yeah, that's an awesome answer, to be honest. I would like that captures so many different aspects. I tried like some versions of all that. I've heard Headspace is great for like some folks. And there's always like a kind of way you can approach it. For me, that was just going snowboarding every morning, like your tennis. And tennis is great. It's a great sport to kind of get out there and really relieve stress too. You also touched on like this area a bit earlier as well with mentorship and teams. And I want to also double click into this one. What makes like a great user research team, and how can someone try to scale out such a team?
That's the challenge that I'm facing right now. And I'm learning so much. And I think I actually treated scaling out a research team like research. I did a lot of reading online. There were some great resources on DScout, who I love to work with, great platform for user research. And then other ones I found online between Medium or people, what is it? User Zoom has a good one. But really like understanding, okay, how have other people built out teams and what are their lessons learned? What can I take from that? Okay, I have some insights from that kind of quick literature review. Then what I did here in my current role is I actually just spent maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month going around the organization, talking to all sorts of people and just listening to them, conducting kind of loose internal stakeholder reviews to understand like, who are you, and foster a relationship with folks and like understand their own kind of like frustrations or pain points in their role, or like just what is your organization problematically suffering from? Right, I'm a researcher, right? That's I can do that. So taking all of that together, I had a good plan in place that I'm working with leadership to buy into now on, like, you know, we need to build a bridge. Like, that's what I learned kind of from my research and the listening tour, was we need to build a bridge between very siloed organizations, and research is a great bridge. I like to treat research like a party. Everybody's invited. Come on over, bring whatever you want to bring to the room, and like, let's all work on it together. Maybe you don't have as much time to dedicate to like sitting in the interview or whatever it is, but like, let's treat the outcome of the research as something we did together. And that's also kind of ties back to the Microsoft principles of one Microsoft. Doesn't matter if you work in Xbox or the developer division, if there's sort of a crossroads, you come together and you work on it as one team. So I like to be very programmatic, right? Did my homework, did the research, had real conversations with real people on what's happening here, and built out a plan. You know, right? Democratization ended up being something really important. Some of our program managers, our content developers, and our designers wanted to go do their own research. And so I was like, okay, we'll hire there, we'll start there. We also just need research resources. People are like cringe, they're like, oh, it's so cringy that we don't have a full-blown user research team. So let's hire a research team. And, you know, if we're growing in this size, let's start hiring some res ops folks, and, you know, they make the research happen. So they're an integral part of a team. But that is the approach I took, was treat it like research, see what works for you and your organization, right? Does it need to be more qualitative? Do we need quant? What are the problems people are facing? And then how can we like understand those and support those problems over time?
That's awesome. Yeah, I've tried to see like similar challenges like that before. I know a few folks like use like mind mapping tools and stuff like that to kind of see the different problems across different orgs, because sometimes like Google Doc or something doesn't do it. How do you kind of like outlay that information? Is it like maybe in a Figma doc you have like different sections of orgs and then like the problems they had?
Ooh, I love that idea. I actually, I'm a writer. So I'm totally like Google Doc, Word doc, whatever it is, right? That's my tool, is more, you know, the words. I've like loved writing forever. So I feel like I personally can make more impact with my words. But I love what you're saying on the power of a visual, right? You can't beat that. And there's Figma, there's Canva. If you're not a designer, you don't want to learn Figma. Canva is like super easy, preloaded kind of diagrams and organizational charts. I personally did not say like, it felt a little too like, kind of like airing out other people's dirty laundry, or like the sordid details of their org. So I didn't say like, these are the problems in content. In what I've done, and the kind of like Word doc I've put together is more centered around like, we need these people, and if we don't have them, this is the outcome. So I focused it more on like, don't worry, I did my homework, because I didn't want to get down into the weeds of like how siloed orgs are not talking to each other, or siloed organizations aren't talking to each other. I focus more on like, if we don't hire for democratization, then research will be a bottleneck, and that will create problems. We don't get insights into product fast enough. If we don't hire researchers, then we can't do all of this work, and we can't build out programs of research to go support products. And if we don't hire res ops, then research just really doesn't happen. And then it's more work on top of the democratization team and the research team's workload, right? Like, we have to absorb that, and that is going to stress people out. So I tried to talk through it in terms of like, what happens if we don't do this? It's kind of like a game of chess, right? Like, if we make these moves, what will people do? And I will also share that I also planned in mind with the fact that corporate tech reorganizes a lot. So I might be on this team that I'm on now, and then there'll be a shuffle in 6 months and maybe another 6 months. So I kind of tried to think just 1 to 2 years out, knowing that we just inherently reorganize teams and groups a lot.
Yeah, that's a great way to approach it, especially, yeah, reworks are so common, especially with like new projects and like research specific projects where they're trying to do new things, and that project might change like really quickly as well.
I'm just like listening to you, and I'm like in awe of all the breadth of experience you have across these different domains. And I'm just like thinking back to when you started out with the Aerospace Academy, then talking about how you're bringing this political knowledge into your role now, and then VR and AR with HoloLens. Can you tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the industry and where it's headed now for aircrafts and VR, and then the current division you're in when it comes to UX?
Yeah, I love that question. I think so. I'm in a big corporate tech company, right? I also see the trends and I see where competition is showing up. So I'll answer that in 2 ways. I think the next big push and what will actually be a very big technological change, if we think about, oh, the internet, oh, cell phones, right? Those are so common now, but I actually think the next biggest push is the cloud, and moving things to the cloud, and the idea of democratization, but in a different way, in the no code or low code solutions that a cloud can provide. So for example, right, I don't have time or bandwidth to figure out how to program a chatbot. Not part of my role, too far gone in my career, not doing it. I will say I'm still a learner, but that is like, I'm not taking the time to learn that. So how can I just go pick up and build a chatbot? Can I go buy a solution that's out there now, or can I figure it out relatively easily through documentation or whatever it is? Because I've done some very recent research, so this is hot off the presses and nothing that I can't share. But what we're hearing from folks is if you're a program manager or you're a designer, you still have to go learn a little bit of code. You have to figure out Python, or you need to figure out just how developers think of code or how they get something in the cloud. And so we have a lot of people who are not traditionally learned about computer science or data engineering or whatever it is, who have to go learn about it. And I think that'll be a really big change for people, because you can just do so much more once you start moving code, regression, other bits and things that you want to do into the cloud. And we'll see how it changes all of our jobs and our work and our lives. We can automate quite a lot more. And so I think that's one big trend. And I think we're sort of seeing it. I talked to some great people who are designers, and they're yeah, I just had to take a Python course on Udemy or whatever it was. And I'm wait, why did you have to do that? You're a designer. And they're well, actually, I need to understand it for this product I'm building. Whoa, what? So not only are you a designer, you're half developer, possibly also a program manager. So I think we're seeing this, we're at this point in time where our skills are getting so blurred. That might be another big trend. But I will also say, coming from mixed reality, I think another change will be the metaverse. I think a good metaverse is a few years out. We're figuring it out. This is the minimum viable product of metaverse, and I mean that for everybody. That's agnostic of Microsoft, right? Facebook's figuring it out, Apple's figuring it out, Unity's figuring it out. Lots of competition in what that is. But I do think that we're at a point in time where that is probably going to become a reality, because we have just such big corporate tech entities going after and pursuing that. And I think, it's very possible that one of those products is going to fail along the way, because that's competition, right? But I do think that someone is going to build it really well and figure it out. And who knows, that's the next kind of weird, weird phenomena, like weird thing that we will maybe experience in our lifetimes. It's a good time to read Ready Player One.
Oh, I love that you touched on the metaverse, because I was actually recently introduced to it by a mutual friend, and blew my mind when I went inside.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, I can't believe it's like this. For our listeners who don't know, what is the metaverse in your words, or what is a good metaverse in the future?
Yeah, I love that. So I don't have a strict definition. I've seen lots floating around, right? Different flavors depending on who you ask. And I think when we think metaverse, it's kind of a digital twin almost of the real world, right? So that we could go have this meeting and potentially meet face-to-face-ish, but virtually. Or if you think about, or we can draw from Ready Player One as an example, right, of we're experiencing life in a digital environment. Right, we're connected in reality, but also in virtual reality, and there's a line that starts to blur, right, of which life are you living? But you can do things in both, and so I think that's really kind of my interpretation of the metaverse, or the metaverse that might be built. And the mixed reality team is doing a lot of great research at Microsoft on understanding ethics and harms, and like what is responsible AI or responsible interaction in the metaverse, right? Let's not duplicate some of the harsh, horrible realities of like life in the metaverse, right? So like, let's not just put people's data out there. Let's make sure that if someone is harmed in the metaverse, there's means to figure that out and rectify it. Or how do we design a virtual world so that that doesn't happen? People can't harm one another. And I mean that from like harassment to just outright discrimination, right? Like just that spectrum of harm. And that especially is important, right, for children. So I think that this is an interesting problem that folks who are building the metaverse face, is that what does it mean to be a child in a virtual world? And how do we protect around that, right? Because we do a lot of research with 18 and above adults, consenting adults. So how do we make sure that very young adults, right, are protected, or adolescents who might use it, right, to game or to connect with others, right? It's like kind of thinking through what are the problems we face in the real world, and like how do we make sure that those don't show up in this kind of second world that we're developing and creating.
No, I love that answer. And coming from like a human rights and criminology background, I never really expected the metaverse to go into these ethical issues and like really delve into those legal dualities compared to the world outside and human interactions. I'm almost thinking back to like the Club Penguin era, when you would be talking to strangers online, and like how's that shifting to this metaverse reality of like kids now going online to talk to avatars and what that means. That's really cool. Gonna shift gears into our last question before like the final five. It's more about mentorship. So what's something a mentor has said to you that stayed with you throughout your career?
Yeah. I love my mentor, Paula Bach. She hired me when I started on the Edge browser, Microsoft Edge browser team. Mm-hmm. And Paula has been a mentor since I've worked with her, since I've jumped around on teams. And her advice, and I'll share this, is to be bold and just go after it, because she knows that I'm kind of like laid back Pacific Northwester. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to get into the political fray. And so she's like, go be bold. And I think what that means is like, come in with a strong, reasonable, rational perspective on why we need to rethink this aspect of the business or the product. And so I know that's like it's a great, simple directive really from a mentor, and it's great advice on, it doesn't mean like go in and charge around and stir things up. I think it really means, go in, show that research is really important and why it matters, because right, we speak for customer, we speak for the people who will end up using a product if it's launched, and convey why what we found is just super important and integral in getting into an engineering backlog or a design backlog, or speak up in a design review. Make sure you get to those design reviews or whatever it is. But that's been solid advice, and I've taken her up on it. And I even apply it to switching roles and teams, right? Go do something bold. So where I'm at now, right, it's like, okay, this is a bold move. We're going to figure out how to build a research practice. So, apply. I think it's a great advice too. Apply to the job that maybe you're like, I don't know, it says they need 5 years of experience and a PhD. Just go apply, because they might end up like loving you and seeing how fantastic you are, and like that you don't need all those things to show that you have a great background and great experience. So go be bold, do great things.
I love how you say that in such a caring way, because I feel like it comes across as, advocate for yourself and really go out there and make sure that you have your voice part of the conversation and the table, even if there's that internal dialogue that may be saying do I reach the bar or not? So I like that advice. Your mentor is on the right track. I like that. All right, so this has been awesome. Our team has learned so much from you today, and we just want to thank you so much for your time. We have a final 5 rapid fire round where we're going to go into 1 word or 1 sentence answers. And are you ready for this?
I'm ready. It's always hard for me. I'm verbose, so we'll do our best.
What's 1 UX resource you would recommend? This could be a book, a blog, a video.
Rosenfeld Media books. Read all of Rosenfeld. I love them.
I love how that's all books within one. Awesome.
Yeah, just all 40 or whatever they have.
That's good. What's 1 really bad piece of advice?
Ooh, I don't agree with this advice. So think with your feet, right? Which means if you don't like it here, leave. And I don't agree with that. Just don't listen to that.
I think we have brains for a reason that are so far away from our feet. So that makes sense. How do you overcome creative roadblocks?
Ooh, circles back to mental health. Take time to yourself. See if you can shift your work later. Go for that walk. Go for that hike. Drink tea or another type of beverage. You figure out what you need.
I love those five sentences. What's the most important thing for a successful career in UX?
Yeah, build relationships. Foster real, meaningful relationships.
And what's next for you? Any upcoming projects that you'd like to share?
Ooh, yeah. We'll see what's next. We'll see what's next. I'll leave it there. A little bit of mystery.
I love the suspense there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lexi. This was a very great, I think, first podcast episode. I definitely learned a lot myself. I think ranging from how to grow as a UX researcher to everything coming down to, about how to grow as a person as a whole. Especially I loved how you touched on about mental health and really emphasized that. I think especially right now during the pandemic, there's so much uncertainty. So that's a really key part, as well as we navigate our own careers or personal life as well. And also blasting to the future, coming back to the idea of the metaverse. That's also something so abstract that I'm still trying to grapple with. So I really enjoyed our conversation today, and our team, and I'm sure our listeners as well. We're super grateful for you taking the time out of your day to speak with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That brings us to the end of today's episode. And if you're looking to learn more, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Until next time, from your favorite UX crew, Joyce, Ritika, Roshni, and Simran.
Yay, thanks.